Hello everyone, thank you. It's great to see so many people here for poetry and writing and art, and Eileen Myles. I'd like to thank the Humanities and Fine Arts Division and the English Department for their support of living writers at Carthage. And before we begin, I want to mention two events that are one that's coming up and one that's ongoing. First, I want to mention that an open mic presented by Family Power Music in Racine, Wisconsin. Grassroots open mic and feature showcase every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. And so the next one would be tomorrow, if I have my dates correct. So tomorrow, and that's at the Racine Arts Council on 6th Street in Racine, 6 to 9 p.m., free admission, all ages, all genres, and they collect food donations for the Racine County Food Bank. They're on Facebook. You can find out more details there. Is Nick here? Nick. So Nick Ramsey also is the guy to talk to. And go see him there, go read your stuff, go hang out with those people. It's a great thing. And also at Carthage next week on November 15th is the Vet Night of the Arts, organized by Martin McClendon, who a lot of you know I helped work on Afghanistan, Wisconsin last year with veterans and the arts, and that's at 7:30 in the Wartburg Theater, which will include a stage fiction reading as well as dance, theater, video, printmaking, and documentary. So come out for that too next week. Eileen Myles, this part I'm going to repeat from earlier, and then there'll be new stuff if you heard before, I apologize, is the author of 19 books, including I Must Be Living Twice. I feel like I'm living twice right now. New and selected poems, and a reissue of Chelsea Girls, which are both available here on the table, by fabulous coincidence, sold by Chelsea, of course. So after the reading, please get a book. I'm sure Eileen would be happy to sign them. Both amazing books. And their next memoir, Afterglow, is forthcoming in September 2017. They are the recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship in Nonfiction and Andy Warhol Creative Capital Arts Writers Grant, 4 Lambda Book Awards, the Shelley Prize from the PSA. Shelley's an interesting precursor to think of for you in various activist ways, perhaps. And was named to the Slate Whiting Second Novel List in 2015, as well as a poetry award from the Foundation for Contemporary Arts. In other words, Eileen Myles and her writing have been celebrated by the literary world, for good reasons. This year she received a Creative Capital Grant and the Clark Prize for Excellence in Art Writing, as well as the Lambda Pioneer Award for contributions to the LGBT literary community. They live in Marfa, Texas, and New York City. Now some things from my own perspective. Eileen Myles is a writer of deep and varied body of work. She's a writer absolutely of the present moment, and of course, their poet's novel, Inferno, walks with Dante, another poet of the present moment, and brought me, for purposes of introduction to The Tempest, another document of the present. And where do we hear them in that play? Where do we hear Eileen Myles, poet, storyteller, writer, thinker about art and memory? Maybe first in the bosun, clearing the Gonzalo and the nobles from the boats. The storm's happening, and they're all telling the guy who's sailing the ship what to do. And he says to Gonzalo and the other nobles, "Good yet, remember whom thou hast aboard." Oh, sorry. "Good yet, remember whom thou hast aboard," Gonzalo says, and the bosun answers, "None that I love more than myself. You are a counselor. If you can work the peace of the present, we will not hand a rope more. Use your authority. If you cannot, give thanks you have lived so long, and make yourself ready in your cabin for the mischance of the hour, if it so hap. Cheerly, good hearts, out of our way, I say." I hear Eileen Myles' poetry in those lines, cheerfully telling the powerful to get out of the way and let the storm be worked by one who lives in it. And then Ariel, the maker of the storm, Prospero only bids that it happen. the maker of that storm that the bosun is in. So Eileen Myles is both the maker of the storm and the worker in it. Yes, this poet contains multitudes like another of their ancestors, Walt Whitman. I think of Eileen Myles when Ariel says or sings, I boarded the king's ship, now on the beak, now in the waist, the deck, in every cabin I flamed amazement. Sometimes I'd divide and burn in many places. On the topmast, the yards, and the bowsprits would I flame distinctly, then meet and join. As you listen to these poems and this writing move through the world, I think you'll hear some of that flame and feel that amazement. Caliban, too, of course. You taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse. And his lines on listening with a poet's ear, through which, in face of everything, he's able to hear sounds and sweet airs that give delight and hurt not. Sometimes 1,000 twangling instruments will hum about my ears, and sometimes voices. Myles hears them too and sings them to us. Let's add Trinculo too, who looks and sees what's there clearly and with good humor. More qualities I find in Eileen Myles' writing. And finally, Prospero. The Prospero that says at the end of the play, please you draw near. Now my charms are all o'erthrown, and what strength I have's mine own, which is most faint. Though of course Prospero's strength and Shakespeare's strength and the strength of the present and the strength of the writer Eileen Myles is anything but faint. Instead, it is both charming and beyond charm, a spell and an open invitation, drawing us in. So please you draw near and join me in welcoming Eileen Myles.
I never gotten introduced by a Shakespeare before. That was crazy. Oh, thank you. So this is great to be here. This is a flashback, having been in the same room already today. So yeah, I'm going to read a bunch of poems, and then maybe at least one new one. And I think I'm going to read a piece from, I was talking about my dog book earlier, so I think I might read The Puppets Talk Show. I'll explain that to you guys if anybody wasn't here, what that is. But first poem is called My Devil. And the thing is, I live in the East Village of Manhattan, and there was a new taco shop on my street called El Diablito, and so it started to be with like devils in all my poems. It was kind of amazing. And then in this poem too, there's this woman who always stands outside her building smoking on my street, and it just like, this is like New York thing where you see people all the time, and usually you just at some point you kind of do a head nod, and then when there's some natural disaster you actually talk. But this person just won't ever nod at me, I've just been nodding at. I just feel like I'm like troublesome lesbian that keeps trying to like get her to say hello. So now I feel like I'm kind of making her famous in some way that she doesn't know about yet. Anyway, My Devil. Paper towels if anybody needs them. Before the sky opens and I drop my tiny ladder, I will inhabit the minds of dogs. Try me on for size. I will lean against the side of the building and smoke my blonde smoke. I will be inside my big car. Something happens. That's what I say. There's always a recipe. I will recite my blonde list. I am the negation of you. Spells on. They're reeling us in. I want her thoughts. Those cattle are mine. The salad's not bad. The devil is turning into everyone. I'm you for a while. Genitals itchy? That's me. I'm going to ruin your corn. It's not such a bad idea. Give me that poem. Give me that menu. Give me key. I don't need to come or go. I'm there in your prayer. Mr. President, consider the wish of the tiny child. He is me. Does it taste good, or does it look like it tastes good? You don't know? See? This one's really old. It's called Evening. Supposed to be there at 7 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock now. Better buy some beer. Go to the door. Sorry I'm late, Frank. Here's 6 apologies. Sit down at the table, start drinking my words, start playing Parcheesi with this kid who keeps revising the rules a little cheap. Keeps using my lighter, it's cheap, but so what, he's irritating me. We have some dinner, some steak, some rice, call broccoli trees. Call the situation perfunctory and sweet. We go look at poems, postcards. We drink coffee, but the beer is still with us. Wish I had some grass, wish I was someplace else. Boring to be me, glad I'm not married. I'd be a child beater, glad I can go home. I feel woozy. Walk down gorgeous, soft, tree-lined streets in the dark, cushy, as the dark rows of trees are stroking the wind or the wind stroking them. You know, like if you're a poet and you start getting written about, people like to put you in little categories. So I get like the punk poet, which is totally, it's like, I feel like it's short for working class or dyke. They just don't know how to say those things, so they say punk, you know? But I feel like I've done exactly 2 punk things, and one of them is this poem. It's called On the Death of Robert Lowell. Because when he died in the 70s, I was like in my 20s, and I just saw this disgusting display of when a poet dies, people get all sentimental, and they were like, oh, he used to walk through Harvard Yard with this beautiful white hair. And it was just like, and I felt like, as somebody in their 20s, I thought, when poets die, you should just like shit on them. And you should celebrate them when they're alive, right? So I thought I'll start this here. And my feeling is when I die, like, fine, I don't care, I'll be dead. What do I care what you say about me? You know? So on the death of Robert Lowell. Oh, I don't give a shit. He was an old white-haired man, insensate beyond belief, and filled with much anxiety about his imagined pain. Not that I'd know. I hate fucking wasps. The guy was a loon, signed up for spring semester at McLean's, a really lush retreat among pines and hippie attendants. Ray Charles also once rested there, so did James Taylor. The famous, as we know, are nuts. Take Robert Lowell, the old white-haired coot, fucking dead. There were like people who still hate me for this. And this is around from the same moment. It's called My Cheap Lifestyle. After a bourbon, I came in and turned on the tube, lit a joint and watched Monterey pop. Nearly wept when Janice came on. Janice's legs kicking on stage was a memorable sight. Janice does her sweet little Texas girl smile as her act finishes. She kicks her heels, and Otis Redding is so sexy. Millions of young Americans experience religion for the first time in their lives, or so the cameras would inform us. I'm concerned about manipulation in this media, how one gains such wonderful power. But of course I'm too tired, thrilled by the process of bringing down a familiar blanket upon my bed. It's nearly fall, nearly winter. I expect the stars will be bright, the woods full of bears. This one's called Peanut Butter. I'm always hungry and wanting to have sex. That is a fact. If you get right down to it, the new unprocessed peanut butter is no damn good, and you should buy it in the jar, as always, in the largest supermarket you know. And I am an enemy of change, as you know. All the things I embrace as new are in fact old things re-released. Swimming, the sensation of being dirty in body and mind. Summer is a time to do nothing and make no money. Prayer as a last resort. Pleasure as a means, and then a means again, with no ends in sight. I'm absolutely in opposition to all kinds of goals. I have no desire to know where anything is getting me. When the water boils, I get a cup of tea. Accidentally, I read all the works of Proust. It was summer. I was there, so was he. I write because I would like to be used for years after my death. Not only my body will be compost, but the thoughts I left during my life. I was a woman with hazel eyes. Out the window is a crooked silo. Parts of your body I think of as stripes, which I have learned to love along. We swim naked in ponds and are right behind your back. My thoughts about you are not exactly forbidden, but exalted because they're useless, not intended to get you because I have you and you love me. It's more like a playground where I play with my reflection of you until you come back, and into the real you I get to sink my teeth. With you I know how to relax, and so I work behind your back, which is lovely. Nature is out of control, you tell me, and that's what's so good about it. I'm immoderately in love with you, knocked out by all your new white hair. Why shouldn't something I have always known be the very best there is? I love you from my childhood, starting back there when one day was just like the rest. Random growth and breezes, constant love, sandwich in the middle of the day, a tiny step in the vastly conventional path of the sun. I squint, I wink, I take the ride. And this one's called The Real Drive. My great sacrifice exists between the inarticulate fingers of a tree sparkling up through a brooding blue as I wail it to the gym in a cab, though the air is wet tonight and I want to take you in my arms and go to Europe. Oh, baby, we must. Kissing all the droplets off your back in the shower now, and the radiator sizzling against the loss and the apparent despair and decay in the walls of the way I live. Anyone can see it now, even Joan. I can't change a thing, but it's warm, terrifically warm against the oncoming winter of 1986 when I was born with you, who were always moving your teepee away, but I usually follow. I don't want to browbeat you, oh black and white, the cops in the city, whooping down first like big dogs. I have to stay true on the street I was born on. This is an oath. Don't lie. I am slipping. I am lying. My great sacrifice exists because everyone sees it, and I need that a lot. I am such a big lesbian, I have to jump off a cliff. I'm such a handsome poet, I have to become an advocate of verse and stop lying and get rich. Every time I dress better, pretty soon I'm speechless or broke soon, I hope. Oh, release me from the hostage of, working for you, baby, or what? In the cab, driving through a slip woman's arms, I could have cried because I was not slipping and sliding alone. It was you in a beautiful dress, black and white, black and white. I have felt things here which I assumed belonged to 14 when I was perfect. Oh, you a man or something wonderful? The great sacrifice is, she slides an icicle down my blouse. She is a jerk. The wonder of the universe is she did not get spoiled. She can hold me. I can hold her also. Every bit of ice breaks up. It flows down the river streaming. Tiniest glistening droplets on the branches of the tree this winter, and the dampness on your hair and the light. When I go this way and you got your coat black wrapped around you now as you walk home with the street lights on your back because you are the North. Okay, this is called An American Poem. And I have to say, I totally wrote this out of the experience of being, one of the stereotypes of everybody, certainly of my age, is that when we were a hitchhiking generation, and when we hitchhiked, everybody would lie. You'd put on a fake British accent and all this. And just lying was always fun, and I remember hanging out with somebody, and I don't know how we got onto this topic, but I started to say that I'm actually really rich. I came from a really rich family, and that's actually something I've never wanted anybody to know. And I could see her face changing, like she was believing it, and then it got really exciting, and then I got this great idea, and this poem totally came out of that. Like I thought, oh my God, this is really working, and I'm just gonna keep going. An American Poem. I was born in Boston in 1949. I never wanted this fact to be known. In fact, I spent the better half of my adult life trying to sweep my early years under the carpet and have a life that was clearly just mine and independent of the historic fate of my family. Can you imagine what it was like to be one of them? To be built like them, to talk like them, to have the benefits of being born into such a wealthy and powerful American family? I went to the best schools. I had all kinds of tutors and trainers. I traveled widely. I met the famous, the controversial, and the not so admirable. And I knew from a very early age that if there were ever any possibility of escaping the collective fate of this famous Boston family, I would take that route, and I have. I hopped on an Amtrak to New York in the early 70s, and I guess you could say my hidden years began. I thought, well, I'll be a poet. What could be more foolish and obscure? I became a lesbian. Every woman in my family looks like a dyke, but it's really stepping off the flag when you become one. Well, holding this ignominious pose, I've seen and I've learned, and I'm beginning to think there's no escaping history. A woman I was currently having an affair with said, "You know, you look like a Kennedy." I felt the blood rising in my cheeks. People have always laughed at my Boston accent, confusing large for large, party for party. But when this unsuspecting woman invoked for the first time my family name, I knew the jig was up. Yes, I am a Kennedy. My efforts to remain obscure have not served me well. Starting as a humble poet, I quickly climbed to the top of my profession. Assuming it was true, I was like the director of the poetry project. It was a big deal. It was right that a woman should call me out now. Yes, I am a Kennedy, and I await your orders. You are the new Americans. The homeless are wandering the streets of our nation's greatest city. Homeless men with AIDS are among them. Is that right, that there's no homes for the homeless? That there's no free medical help for these men and women? That they get the message, as they are dying, that this is not their home? And how are your teeth today? Can you afford to fix them? How high is your rent? If art is the highest and most honest form of communication of our time, and the young artist is no longer able to move here and speak to her time, yeah, I could, but that was 15 years ago. And remember, as I must, I'm a Kennedy. Shouldn't we all be Kennedys? Our nation's greatest city is home of the businessman, home of the rich artist, people with beautiful teeth who are not on the streets. What should we do about this dilemma? Listen, I have been educated. I have learned about Western civilization. Do you know what the message of Western civilization is? I am alone. Am I alone tonight? I don't think so. Am I the only one with bleeding gums in this room tonight? Am I the only homosexual in this room? Am I the only one whose friends have died or dying now? My art can't be supported until it's gigantic, bigger than everyone else's, confirming the audience's feeling that they are alone, that they alone are good, deserve to buy the tickets to see this art, are working, are healthy, should survive, and are normal. Are you normal tonight? Everyone here, are we all normal? It's not normal for me to be a Kennedy, but I am no longer ashamed, no longer alone. I'm not alone tonight because we are all Kennedys, and I am your president. So that's actually how I ran for president. I was like, it was such a good feeling. I was like, I have to keep doing this. It's like, this one's called Shh. I don't think I can afford the time to not sit right down and write a poem about the heavy-lidded white rose I hold in my hand. I think of snow, a winter night in Boston, drunken waitress stumble on a bus that careens through Somerville, the end of the line where I was born, an old man shaking me. He could have been my dad. You need a ride? Wait, he said. This flower is so heavy in my hand. He drove me home in his old blue Dodge, a thermos next to me, cigarette packs on the dash, so quiet like Boston is quiet. Boston in the snow. It's New York. Plates are clattering on St. Mark's Place. Should I call you? Can I go home now and work with this undelivered message in my fingertips? It's summer. I love you. I'm surrounded by snow. This one's called Looking Out, a Sailor. And it's very literal because I had this dog who is actually the dog who is the subject of my next book. And she was a puppy, and I was taking her to training, and I had this old car, and suddenly the car was dying, and there was this huge rainstorm. But weirdly, all these people in my life in a very short period of time had died, like sudden deaths. And it was, like really, like strange deaths. And I mean, a death is always strange, of course. But it was just like boom, 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 like really fast. The clouds look made, and perhaps they were. An angry little shelf for the moon to have some influence on. I'm dying tomorrow. My car died tonight in a glorious explosion, then clunk. Turning pages, coming up on midnight when the poet died. It was his heart, not his head. The girl, she was, say, 27, covered in tattoo, a sauce her boyfriend made to cover her sins. Let's say she is glad tonight to be dead. Her name? Lori Jackson. So I push on and my dog needs a bath. Don't sell Rosie short, says the trainer, and flattered, I won't. I remember the last night with my car. Came home and called the night watery grave. Didn't know why. Everyone dying around me now, but not yet, not me yet. The lights all smeared and gooey, an incredible downpour like Laurie's body. I could see shadows I think were persons. They were the dead, and we were alive. Yes, I think it was that way that last night. So lucky I didn't hit one. My pooch by my side. This is my life when I grow up, I thought as a child, in my boat with my dog, named what? Rosie. She barks, driving into the night. God, we couldn't see a thing, but we weren't scared. Besides, we'd had plenty of life. Prayed for a parking space. Funny, turning in the dark, those lights back there are cars, I think. Don't ask me, said Rosie. But I wanted to sail the rest of my life. It was dumb. I'd arrived. There was my space. Perfect. And I pulled in. And this is the saddest poem I ever wrote. What can I tell you about sadness? The shapes you find beneath it, how you run from it in your sleep, bolting awake. Early in my labors, I work with children. I was one then, but so what? The story goes. Autistic kids, a boy named Bobby, who so loved porcelain, he leaned his cheek on it, a little animal and his cool white mama. The things I warm my hands by are not true. Someone who holds her head like that, forbidding, I think is warm. I would lay my paw on her icy bottle, her icy dead cheek, her red legs. The red light rippled in my watery grave. If I could paint tonight, I would be the word that fills the silence after modern, following something slow, red, changing lanes. It was utterly silent, my painting, the dog breathing, well, relentlessly, and they had pulled my antenna off so long ago. Deep down, there was some music, classical. How to say, I was having the pivotal moment of my life with the dog. All the silence had led up to here, and streamers could be followed to the moment of my death. What kind could I be? Some kind of poet who followed it along, say it's distant and far off, or right next to me now? I do not know or choose to. I saw the world melt all at once. I want to go with everyone, waiting for everything to shift back to real, and it's stranger and stranger now. All my lies don't lie anymore. The car dies, and I drive on. The rain stops. He said I would surely outlive my dog, and I know that, and I took her home. But everyone? No, I didn't know that. When everyone goes, I go. I'm following now, and our truth is dark. I'm going to read one more old poem and then a new one, and I think I'll cut to the dog book. I think that'll be like a perfect little event for us. It's weird. There's certain poems that are just like favorites that I always, it's like, because you're like, you do these readings and you're looking at the book and you've read all these poems, and so it's like, I don't want to read that, you know. But there's certain ones I'm like always up for. And this one's called Writing. I can connect any two things. That's God. Teeny piece of Band-Aid, a little folded piece of Band-Aid. I ran to the bathroom to see my face. Sometimes I don't want to see my face in the mirror. Sometimes I can't bear my thoughts. Sometimes I can't do anything, but that's okay. Band-Aid, book, God. That's right. You know, I'm doing math, just so it'll be a little quiet moment. Okay, so this is called Sweetheart. And I live some of the time in Texas, so I was like sitting in my backyard, just sort of looking at shit and feeling something. Like perfect poem occasion. Fresca's got a new look, but I'm not drinking that. My Coke struck the ice and the ice cube cracked. I'm sitting by the little Buddha who was sitting in my yard. I imagined you walking in and gasping at the same couch, the same bed. It's almost the same town, but this is what I meant. And there's so much pleasure, difference, and this, that. I meant to be here. One sleeps on what they mean and arises on the decided side, and that's the hope. An entire room is opened by particular feelings that say you're on the edge of the space, and then you wait to watch it grow. Grow like a love or a feeling of distrust or a body, grateful for sun and breeze and the rising and falling of my dog's chest. No, God. You know what? This is, for some reason or other, this poem is not feeling right. So maybe, maybe it's a great poem, but I think I'm not going to read it. You're cool with that, right? So I'm going to read one election poem, and then I'm going to read the dog thing. So this is the poem I wrote because there was a website for artists supporting Hillary Clinton, and so they said, would you write a poem? And I said, yes. So this, if you guys know the poet Frank O'Hara, he has a famous poem that he wrote. It was like a love poem to somebody, and he wrote vertically, which is a really great way to write a poem. If you just need to write a poem, you just write something down vertically, and then you start the poem with the first letter of each. You know what I mean? Like it's an anagram. So it was like, his poem was like, you're beautiful and I'm coming, And this is, Hillary, you're my man. So it was like very easy then. I just like, pew, pew. How perfect the American sky out there, innocent perhaps of our goings on. Let everyone turn around once, one day. Let them pull the lever, write your name. Awesome, the keenness of your focus, Hill. Regarding debating, regarding knowing, you inspire me to stay still, to act. You probably had breakfast this morning. Oregon was one of your stops. Understanding the Northwest is part of your job. Remembering every day a woman chooses to keep running. Every day you learn more, meet more people. You daily become our president. May every inch of this journey and every moment of your female campaign unabashedly nail it like the girl I met at breakfast at Marfa Burrito. Her name, Victory. Hey, thanks. It was, so do you think you can hack it for 10 minutes for a dog play? Yeah? But the thing that was weird, so I wrote the whole poem except for the last line. I could not get it. So I took my dog for a walk, and we go to this great place called Marfa Burrito. And we're sitting there, and there's this little girl twirling around. And I just asked her dad, I was like, so what's the girl's name? And he said, Victory. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, I've never heard that. And he was like, it's a family name. Like, that's her mother's name, and that's her grandmother's name. And I was like, incredible. So it's just that total accidental thing. So, okay, so I had a dog named Rosie, and Rosie died in 2006. And I think most of you guys were here earlier, but it was like when I was working on the book, these people were like, "Is Rosie going to talk in the book?" And I was like, ugh, But I had these childhood puppets, and I realized that if the puppets had a talk show and invited Rosie onto it, she would talk. So this is basically the puppets talk show, and we're just going to take off here. Oscar, the host, is a puppet. He has shiny black painted hair and bright red dots on both his cheeks. He has a pair of blue overalls with suspenders and a blue and yellow striped shirt. One of his feet is gone and his pant leg is empty. Oscar, hello, hello, hello. Our guest tonight, Rosie, a dog, is here to set the record straight. All puppets. Yay! Yes, Rosie is our guest. Where's the... That's weird. Okay, no, it's good, Okay. Oscar, yes, Rosie is our guest. Thanks for coming, Rose. Rosie nods. Glad to be here, Oscar. Very glad, in fact. Rosie leans forward a bit in her chair, adjusting her butt. Oscar, puppets and dogs. A lot of folks probably can't see the connection between our kinds. I say balderdash. All puppets drumming. It's like a puppets drum circle, giant. Oscar, our studio audience, the kids. Camera pans to the kids. To the left of Oscar and Rosie is a short row of puppets. Bedelia, who has black yarn hair. Montgomery, a young guy with painted reddish hair. Casper, a ghost. Little more than a white clown head and a sheet. And finally, Crocky, the crocodile. A pair of white papier-mâché jaws going clack, clack. And a body of red and green upholstery material. Behind them are hundreds and thousands of puppets going back endlessly into the horizon, which becomes mountains and hills also covered with puppets, all the puppets in the world. Rosie turns and returns to Oscar, smiling. Wow. Oscar, yeah, there's a lot of us. The meeting of puppets and dogs has been a long time coming, and you can see how important it is to our kind. Puppet nation. No, puppet universe. Rosie, I hope I can do my kind justice. I mean, there's only one of me, and there's a lot of dogs. Oscar, what do dogs want, Rosie? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you agreed to come in today, and you can see what your being here means to us. And I hope you don't mind me being honest. You guys are generally considered the enemy. For good reason. Dogs historically have torn a good many puppets apart, tore us to shreds. Camera close up on Oscar's face, and a tiny tear is dripping down. Rosie, I get it, Oscar. A lot of wrong has been done, but those do. Oscar bows his head and then lifts a white hand. Oscar, those were ordinary dogs, Rosie? Is that what you were going to say? Oscar looks over at his white Bedelia and all the puppets up in the hills. He regains his composure. Rosie, I think I would feel more comfortable on the floor. Hops down and plants her head on her paws, looking innocent. Oscar, forget it. You came here to talk with us, and it's time to move on. Dogs are pawns and puppets are pawns. Let's face it, puppets are puppets. People put their hands inside us. They enter our heads and our bodies and make us say things whether we believe them or not. Rosie, over her shoulder. People have us on leashes. People feed us on the floor. They put us to sleep. They put us down. Oscar, right, and that doesn't happen to us. But now that you're animated, we've got a lot more in common. All it takes to see things fresh is the right opportunity, a good invite. Oscar looks around proudly, to be on our show. Rosie hops back on chair. And how many dogs get this, Oscar? How many dogs are called? I'm grateful I was called. I always was. I guess that's why I'm here. Oscar, what was it like? Rosie, what was what like? Oscar, I don't know how to put it. The fame? I mean, you're definitely getting famous. Right now. You've been written about, like Lady Di. You're basically being deified. Flips through the pages of the galley, nodding, as well as defiled. Rosie, no great shakes, Oscar. Big dog, little dog, all the same. Humans are the problem, I think you'll agree. Oscar, nodding. All puppets. A murmuring begins with Oscar's low hum and cascades all the way back up the mountain like a growly bell or a quake. Oscar, you just touched the rock, my friend. Rosie, the one I had rode me like a car. She was interested in how she abused me. She wrote about it. She wrote about it extensively. I mean, that's why I'm here, right? When I died, she described the ways my body was treated, pushed and plastered like a criminal or a child. They made a Rosie souvenir before they threw me in the fire. Then and only then. And oh yeah, when I was dying, get this, when they're wheeling me around town like a man who has money, then she writes in her long legal pad, puppetry. She gets the idea that I was used, treated like I was empty. Great. Well, how about my whole long life, Eileen? Oscar, that was your name for her? Rosie, no, it was not. I called her Jethro. That was my name for her, and believe me, I got in more than one fight defending that name. I tell a few other dogs in the park, ugh, here comes Jethro. When she's loping towards me with her big smile and a rope, like it's good news, I gotta go home for hours and sit on the floor. Yet I had a certain amount of loyalty. The dogs in the park got snickering and telling all the other dogs, look, Jethro. I wasn't down for that shit, laughing at her. That's part of why dogs in captivity, but that's pretty much all dogs, we're known for our loyalty. We stay with the hand we were dealt with, and we generally will fight for it. Dogs do have choices. Unlike you guys, we can move on our own, and some dogs totally do. Go to Mexico, for instance, live your own life, though you can also fucking starve on those streets. But yeah, there's a lot of us down there. I guess anything's better than getting gassed as a pup, but my point was I was very often defending her and getting myself in fights in the dog run for years, and did she have any idea? First, she tries to get me knocked up, have me raped. That is in the book to her credit. Later, she decides, no, that's not what I want, and then she has my insides yanked out. Oscar, puppets look aghast. All puppets. Rosie, you didn't know about that? Spaying? Oscar, They take your copy thing away. That's it. Isn't it, Rosie? Still, do you want more dogs? Isn't that the argument? Alleviating dog suffering? Rosie. Yes, we want more dogs. Do you want more puppets? Rosie turns and looks up the mountain and beyond. We want to outnumber humans and turn it around. Not in a warlike fashion, but gentle, you know. We're doing it from the inside out already. That's what this book means. We're talking to our masters, very gently and subtly. Dogs are true leaders and strong teachers, as the life of Eileen Myles after my own life will show. Life is short. That's the problem. It's very hard for one dog to do much in one lifetime. 16 years. By the time you hit your message, your body's failing. Oscar. So there's some truth. Rosie. Truth to what? Eyebrows raised. Oscar. Well, here's your book, Afterglow. It's right on my knee. And what I'm hearing now from you is that it's not so clear how much of the work here is yours. Oscar turns towards the camera, waving the book. Authorship. Who's writing who? Puppets take the cue and start drumming. Rosie. Want the facts? Okay, here's the facts. My lawyer wrote Eileen Myles 10 years ago, and she did nothing. I was begging her for years, at least make us some money. The pages my lawyer wrote were brilliant. Can we throw them up on the screen? It's a little long. Oscar. We're in puppet time. Do puppets have time? All puppets. Oh, yeah. Rolling up the mountains and the hills. Dear Eileen, puppets drumming. I take the liberty of calling you Eileen to begin the unpleasant task of forcing you. And so basically what happens here, there's a long letter in which a lawyer writes Eileen a letter saying that this is all about dogs' rights. And they realize that unless there are rich dogs, no dogs can have rights because they're just a class of dogs. And so Rosie has inherited a lot of money, and now she's hired a lawyer, and the lawyer is suing Eileen. So this is what's going on. Rosie, off camera. Oscar, have you read this before? Oscar, letter or the book? Rosie, any of it. Oscar, I read the whole book. Nothing gets on the show I don't approve of. Rosie, okay, so I totally wrote the letter. Oscar, what are you saying? Rosie, there's no lawyer, there's no money. I never said it because it kind of confuses things. I put it in her head. It's what we always did. She feels she wrote it. Oscar, God, there's some legal issues to this. They must, hold on. Foundation and their will. So on the TV show, the letter is being read and everybody's watching it in the TV audience. Oscar, we've got plenty of time. They must know. Rosie, they know. You know how humans are, particularly this one, vague. The stuff early on about the hand-addressed letter is fiction, just covering her ass. I don't know, maybe she's trying to give credit to the post office. But I sent her something else, a dream. It's short. Can I send it to your phone? Oscar, now. Awkwardly pulls out his large phone out of his overall pocket. Eileen's dream. At the party, I was talking to Peggy. Oscar, Peggy the dog? The one in Ireland? Rosie, no, that's later. It's Awish, the filmmaker. I was talking to Peggy, and she asked me how I'd been. Is this getting too hard to follow? How do you guys feel? I should just keep going. Okay, I was having an anxiety moment. I wished you heard the whole dog letter, but I didn't think of doing that in the beginning. Okay. No, Awish, the filmmaker. I was talking to Peggy, and she asked me how I'd been. It's very lonely in California, but I'm doing what New Yorkers do. This is all being on the puppet's phone, being read. But I'm doing what New Yorkers do out there. I'm working on myself. I mean, there's no people. There's people, but you don't see them. Everyone's in their houses. So you can't help seeing yourself. I went there with a girlfriend, and in less than a year, she's up in LA fucking around. I wind up in a very large bed, a California king, they call it. Rosie looks down at her own phone, smiling. I love that bed. Did you get to that part? Oscar, yeah, let me check. And this is back to the screen. The explicit purpose of identifying dogs who were likely litigants, candidates for beginning the long and arduous process of getting the ball rolling on dogs' rights. It's been clear to my client during his life. Oscar, we're still okay. Okay, back to the phone. Eileen continued. One night, as I was falling asleep, which had been very fitful, That winter, trying to get myself adjusted to sleeping alone in a giant bed inside an empty house, I began seeing a slow fading slideshow of the faces of all the women I had ever been involved with. Each of them was looking at me with love in their faces, and as I laid there on my giant bed, I found it hard to believe that that had been my life, that anyone had ever looked at me that way. It was a painful, lonely feeling, and then I fell asleep. I woke up anxiously in the blue of morning. I looked out the window at the eucalyptus trees, and I felt a stab of anxiety, and I realized I must get up. I jumped out of bed, and I went to the front room, which had a door which looked through a tiny yard with a fence out into other houses in a suburban street. At that moment, a light went on in the house across the street. It was the house of a large, depressed lesbian named Joni, who I had determined wanted me by the way she impulsively grabbed me once at a meeting. Oh God, Joni's going to be awake now, I thought, as if by standing there looking out the street, I was responsible. I stood in my doorway taking all of it in when suddenly I saw myself standing there looking out as a toy, a wooden puppet with a pointed nose, nodding benignly, smiling and looking out. Oscar lifts his head smiling. That's very sweet. Rosie, I'm glad you think so. Humans will think it's creepy. Oscar, humans never like thinking of themselves as puppets. Puts white gloved hand on Rosie's paw. Your secret is safe with me. I think we're going live right now. Now we're back to outside. There is one today, the dog formerly known as Rosie. She has been left a significant sum of money in my client's will. She may spend it as she pleases with a single stipulation that she obtain counsel and press charges against her owner for a variety of abuses and crimes against dog kind. As you know, Eileen Myles, that owner is you. Oscar, okay, that's the kind of history we like. He rocks a bit looking at all the other puppets. Rosie, powerful document, I agree, and anyone with half a brain would have written a dog's desiderata on behalf of us, or even a serious defense of herself, and would be set. Nah, old Jethro shows it around a bit like, look at the brilliant piece of writing I don't know what to do with, and whoosh, she slides the letter into her files. Maybe she publishes it in a student magazine. Years pass. I listen to her whining and huffing. What's wrong with my life? Why can't anyone see I'm a genius? On and on. She took me to nature, to the sea, to the forest. She did her best when it coincided with what she considered her career. Puppets, what's that? Rosie, they put their hands inside you, don't they? Same idea. Using whatever they've chosen, law, sex, poetry, whatever they choose, they try to do that to the world. Animate it. Put their hands inside the thing and shake it at the world, wanting everyone to go, whoa. That's pretty much how I understand a human career. And we are feathering their beds. So yes, I taught her to write. I showed her the way. Work changes in 1990 when I came on the scene. Check it out. She admits it, but people think she's being poetic, humble, theoretical. Cut to the end of our so-called story. I'm basically unable to walk to the door to say I need to relieve myself. We're sitting on the green chase lounge in the yard, and she's got the yellow pad out now, and she's writing to break your heart. Now, you fucking loser? Yes, now. The book is here, our book, and yes, I have helped mightily. Just as I wrote virtually every poem by Eileen Myles from 1990 to 2006, and she wrote nothing in the intervening months, no, years. A cat writes a poem. I don't think so. A cat does not have a poem. A cat stays in. It's a whole other kind of thing for them. I'm not really in touch with them yet. Oscar, cats? Rosie, yeah, cat. We picked up a pretty doggy one, Ernie, black guy. He was wandering around wondering if this is the right place for him. We took him in, and I liked him very much, and the pair of them were devastated after my departure. But there's no poems in that. You know, the person you should talk to is Dawn Allen. Oscar, who's that? Rosie, she's a talker and betweener. You know, animal communicators? Oscar, you mean Rosie? Yeah, she's a puppet. She's our puppet. She's practically a saint. People call her up, and for a very reasonable rate, she lets us speak. Eileen Myles waits till the end of my life to see what I was hanging around for. Was I her father? That's a very big part of this book about me. Humans are always looking for the obvious, very low, very base, very banal kinds of puppetry. They can't imagine their own animation ending. They decide that God's got his little paw in them, laughing. I know that sounds sleazy. Oscar, not to us. Murmuring echoes go up the mountains. Rosie, they decide their children will be their future puppets. They build institutions and they write books to carry on their names. Quack, quack, quack. Everything will speak their name while they're alive, and especially when they are gone. The pathetic thing about humans is they think that everything is in their hands. Their hands are in or on everything. Pat, pat, rubbing behind the ears, looking in your eyes for years. Oscar, so you had your say, first in the book, through Don Allen, and now here. I would kill for that experience. Rosie, and you have in a lot of movies. A doll coming alive, a puppet coming alive. The only things humans can imagine about puppets finally becoming free of them is that you guys all want to kill, and for good reason. Oscar, you said it, Chief. Rosie, I told Don Allen what I loved. The grass in our yard, the sun on my fur. Jethro was thinking about moving again, and in this conversation, I let him know very clearly that for me, it wouldn't be so good. Dawn asked if I would come along, and I used some language that anyone who came from the Myles family should have known meant no. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. It was a joke. I was talking like Eileen's mother, so she would know in the deepest possible way what was going on. Oscar, and did she take the hint? What did she do? Rosie, she moved to Los Angeles, of course. She winds up sitting in an old apartment in Koreatown writing my will. Thank you. Same old story. Most poets, most humans, for my money, if they have anything going on at all, will still prefer singing about it over truly being. I guess it was the best she could do. Poor old Jethro. First she killed her father, she killed the family parakeet, and then she killed me. Oscar, chilling. Does she know? Rosie, she's about to find out. We've written a book, this very sad book, about trying to listen. A dog, even or especially when our hearing's gone, we know what everything means. That the universe is deep. That it's not about what's inside you. The inside is empty. All puppets nodding. It's the layered story that's true. That's what everything means to me. The world is waiting. It wants very much to tell you its facts. It wants to be seen. Once you touch everything and touch it well, then you can let go and go home. Puppets, you mean, Rosie, then you can sink into the pond and know everything. There's no God, there's no dog, just water. Everything is water, on and on. Oscar, I think that is a very nice place to close. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Eileen, there's books for sale. Please help yourself to one, and if you want to have one sign or say thank you or say hello, we'll be here for a few minutes. Or complain bitterly, or complain bitterly.